Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Taylor Combaluzier, a mining analyst at Red Cloud Securities. Today's webinar features Kesselrun Resources, which is currently focused on its exploration program at its Huronian project located in northwestern Ontario, where a drill program is currently underway. The company has had success at numerous zones at the project, with the most recent results being from the Fisher Zone, where drilling continues to intercept significant gold mineralization and has extended along strike by 250 meters to the west. Additionally, Kesselrun is planning to target geological structures on strike to the southwest of Goldshore Resources Moss Lake deposit. The company also owns the BLUFFPOINT project on the same structural trend as New Gold's Rainy River mine. Today, I have with me on the webinar Michael Thompson, who's President, CEO, and Director at Kesselrun. Today's webinar will be comprised of two parts. In the beginning, Mike will provide an update on Kesselrun, including going over recent drilling results and how the company plans to continue expanding mineralization on the property. We'll then go into what else we can expect from exploration at the project. In the second part of the webinar, we'll take your questions live. So please use the chat function and send in the questions whenever you feel throughout the presentation. To start, we'll handle the disclosures and then get into it. So for Kesselrun, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the Kesselrun corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent research located on our website for Kesselrun specific disclosures. So with that out of the way, I'll turn it over to Mike to update you on the company and what you have to look forward to.
Thanks, Taylor. Welcome, everybody. Kesselrun Resources, we're exploring for near-surface high-grade gold in emerging gold district in northwestern Ontario. So there's our forward-looking statements for everybody's quick perusal. You can read it more thoroughly off the website. So northwestern Ontario and Canada specifically, or more broadly, top-tier jurisdiction, great place to explore, fantastic geology. Northwestern Ontario hosts several multi-million-ounce gold deposits. One in production, New Gold's Rainy River gold mine, and lots in advanced exploration and development. So we're concentrating our efforts right now on the Huronian project, hosts a historic resource, and also hosts a previous historic producer. We closed a $3 million equity offering in the end of last year. And so we're fully funded for exploration throughout the year of 2022. A little cap market profile, KES on the venture, KSSRF on the OTCQB, which we just recently upgraded from just the pink sheet listing. Took a little while, but so we're trading. I think we're at 4 cents right now. This is slightly out of date. It's slated to be updated, but trading in the range sort of up to 18 cents. We've got about 94 million shares outstanding, 118 million fully diluted with options and warrants. Market cap, obviously slightly less than that right now, of 5 million. And we're sitting with a reasonable cash position. That's slightly out of date, but not that far off. Share ownership, we've got some good institutional shareholders, participated in our 2020 financing and 2021 financing. Management and insiders, just approximately 10%. I'm a big shareholder. Friends, family, some high net worth investors are just over 10%. So a little bit of a background on the team. Myself, President, CEO, and Director. founding partner of a consulting company based out of Thunder Bay here, where I'm based. I'm a professional geologist, pushing 25 years experience. Worked for Teck, Placer Dome, Gold Corp. Mostly gold, but a little bit of base metals sprinkled in there. John DaCosta, who's the CFO and a director, he's based out of Vancouver. He's runs a management consulting firm, does corporate management, compliance, bookkeeping, etc. Rodney Stevens joined the team last year as VP Corporate Development. The certified financial analyst. He's got over 10 years experience in the capital markets and lots of experience with financings and M&A activity. Caitlin Jeffs and Yana Selena are directors, not on the management team. Kat's president and CEO of Red Metal Resources, working down in Chile, and as a geologist, and Yana is a chartered accountant based out of Vancouver and CFO of several publicly listed companies as well. So there's Northwestern Ontario. So for people that aren't quite familiar with this part of Northwestern Ontario, just to give you some idea, basically, just north of here is the Red Lake area. So the sort of, if you did another image, similar scale, the next part would be Red Lake. So there's the Huronian project down here. That's where we're concentrating our efforts. It's just west of Thunder Bay, and then Bluff Point in the center. There's New Gold's Rainy River Mine. Bluff Point's on that structure. So lots of other multi-million ounce development projects. The one we sort of have our eye on is our next door neighbor here at Huronian is the Moss Lake project, which is run by Goldshore Resources. They have historic resources in the order of 4 million ounces. So great infrastructure, lots of highways, Trans-Canada Pipeline, gas line, and electrical transmission. They've just been doing a big upgrade on all the transmission lines. Multi-billion-dollar projects. So great infrastructure, great population base. Very mining friendly. So the Huronian project's just south of the Trans-Canada Highway. Well situated on a network of major logging roads, so easy to get around, cost-effective exploration for sure, and then eventually development as well. So, so here's a bit of a zoom in on our project area, the Huronian. It's 100% owned. It's about 4,600 hectares in blue here. And then in the red, you can see next door is Goldshore's Moss Lake project. So as I mentioned, it's a past-producing gold mine, dead center in the project. That little head frame symbol, produced in the 30s, about 30,000 ounces approximately of gold, 170,000 ounces of silver, and then there's an historic resource that was done in 1998. Again, it's historic. We're not relying on it as current or compliant with 43-101. But it was done on 3 zones that surround the actual historic mine. So just as a sort of a footnote, the historically mined zone was not part of that historic resource. I'll go into a bit more detail on that. The historic resource was approximately 500,000 ounces at 14 grams. So yeah, and as I mentioned, our next door neighbor, Goldshore Resources, they've got this one of the 2 deposits, about 3 million ounces, just over a gram, and their geology strikes onto the southern part of our project. So. So a quick little overview of the history of the project. I get asked the question a lot. People say, "Well, what's going on with the project? Why did you get it? Why is it still there? What's going on with it?" So it was discovered in 1871. It was actually developed as Northwestern Ontario's first gold mine. Did not achieve commercial production until the 30s. It was remote at the time, no road, and they put the railway in, but then it was still quite a distance south of the highway, of the railway, and winter roads, et cetera, et cetera. So commercial production in the 30s, there was no road to it, so hampered by that. And then obviously the Second World War and the base metal boom through the post-war years really took the focus of exploration dollars. So it didn't really see any work until really late 70s, a little bit in the 70s, but mostly the 80s and 90s. The package, as you see on the previous slide, was made up of 14 different smaller packages. Company Pele Gold puts it together in 1996. Quite a feat to do all these deals with various small juniors, prospectors and local sort of developer guys. Put the package together in 96. The market falls out from underneath them in 97. So it didn't really get any good kick at the can even then, and then sort of got kicked around a little bit through the 2000s. Had some ownership issues, so didn't really get any good exploration focus. The company was on the ropes. Managed to do a deal, all share acquisition, 4 million shares of Kesselrun back in 2016. So we spent that downturn, fortunate to get it at a very favorable price, and then we spent the time, really compiling all the data, doing some modeling. We did lots of boots on the ground work to try to, figure out what did previous operators do right, what did they miss. So we had a lot of success, discovering some new zones through our sort of new structural interpretation. We did quite a bit of mapping, trenching, did some geophysics that aided in that. And then we kicked off an initial drill program in 2020. We drilled 3,000 meters, did a larger financing. We drilled 20,000 meters last year. And then we've a budget of 15,000 meters this year. Current exploration, we're working on expanding the zones. We're doing some geophysics and advancing that geology over that target area to the southwest. So there's a bit of a more detailed geology of the project area. Something I like pointing out is these shear zones. We've got two of them, and it's that flexure area where the orientation of the shear zone changes. This is our gold mineralizing model. The same thing happens at Moss. So that's really, in our opinion, the nexus, or the reason why there's economic concentrations or potentially economic concentrations of gold. And so we've got that shear zone, the Moss gold trend coming onto the southern part of our property. We've done a lot of work. We think we've identified another shear. So the regional structure as previously interpreted, we think it's incorrect, and we've got a bit of a flexure right about there. So we've been working hard, getting that drill ready and getting ready to test it. Clear that. So we've got both high grade and bulk tonnage targets on the property. Historically, the zones had really only ever been drilled to say 75 meters depth. Had previous to us had really untested at depth and along strike. Nonetheless, they still had managed to put a sizable historic resource onto it. And then just some there was a few drill holes down on the southern part, so they did get some good sniffs of what we think is the bigger potential down in the southern part on the Moss Gold trend. 13 meters at just over a gram, 11 meters at just shy of 1.5 grams. So fairly typical type grades and intercepts that Goldshore is seeing up at Moss Lake as well. So this slide is sort of really shows those zones. So again, the historically mined Huronian zone in red there, just to remind, was not part of that historic resource. So the historic resource was on this Fisher zone, this Fisher North zone here, and then the McKellar. So we've colored these different zones, different colors based on what we think is going on with the structural history, I guess, to keep it simple. But basically, the McKellar and the Fisher zone are exemplified of different, an earlier event, a slightly lower grade event, a bigger event. I like calling that the prep event, and then the Huronian event. The structures that are, in this orientation in red are the higher grade event, and so where we find really interesting concentrations of mineralizations where these red structures cross blue structures essentially, and so Huronian is so prolific because it's basically bent this McKellar blue structure into the Huronian orientation, and so we are seeing that elsewhere, on Fisher, and we think we've got some other structures, crossing interesting lithologies and down at McKellar and that. So we've been working hard, expanding the Huronian down dip and on strike to the northeast. McKellar zone, stretches way far down south and off this figure actually. I was just out last week prospecting with one of my senior geologists, and we found some quartz veins way farther south. So quite interesting. And then working on these Fisher and Fisher North zones. So one of the big, and these associated Fisher structures, which I'll touch on a little bit more later. So here's the Huronian zone. There's a little, the picture on the right here is from the 30s during the production. You can see they had quite a bit of infrastructure there. And then it's something to note. So the Huronian zone didn't really see a lot of attention because they just dumped this waste rock over the edge, right? You see all this waste rock just dumped over this slope which is basically the start of the shear zone, and so nobody had actually seen a surface expression of the zone, and it was buried somewhere in here. We weren't sure exactly where, based on the shafts and everything. So there's three shafts. There's we got one here, we got one there, and then there's one off this picture just a little bit farther south. So this one here with the smokestack is actually on the picture on the right is sitting right here. So we dug through the waste rock. This is back in 2020, just to get eyes on it. So the Huronian shear zone is quite wide. It's 10 plus meters wide, true width. And so each step you see here is basically a quartz vein in the shear zone. And then I took this picture, and there's actually another one down here. And then weren't sure what was underneath where we were sitting or where I was standing because it's low ground and wet and couldn't dig through it. But we dug through this, gave a lot of good information. We got some good grab samples. It was in one of the news releases back in 2020. Some good high grade numbers gave us a bit more confidence of how to target Huronian with drilling. So here's a long section of Huronian showing some of the drilling we've done in the past. So again, that picture was situated sort of in this area where we dug, and the older photo was sort of on that. And so the grayed out areas are the mined out areas, mined out stopes. But to note that, as I mentioned, that zone's 10 meters wide and it's made up of multiple quartz veins. But the historic records indicate that all but one stope, and I believe it was this stope down here, was only on one quartz vein. They basically picked the highest grade quartz vein, the best of the best, and that's what they mined, and left the rest. So, after we'd done the compilation of all the data, we realized this and said, there's, potentially there's quite a lot of remnant mineralization left over. So, we thought that was quite significant. And I've seen in other projects where, different times, different economics, they take out the high grade and leave a lot of low grade, and there's lots of potential economic mineralization left. So drilling this was we had two goals. One was to understand better what was going on, so we could better target elsewhere on strike, down dip, down plunge, but also assess that remnant mineralization potential. And so you can see some of these intercepts, 16 grams over 4 meters, 7 over just shy of 3, just shy of 14 grams over 3 meters. So lots of remnant mineralization. We've hit some stopes a couple times, unfortunately. I feel like the stopes are almost like a magnet sometimes, but drawing in the drill hole, but gives you the confidence of where things are. But yeah, we proved the thesis up. We continue to drill the zone down plunge and test some targets on strike. So we think there's lots of potential in the immediate mine area for remnant mineralization and remnant resources potentially, and then to be discovered newer extensions of this zone and sort of associated zones. So again, talking about these dilational flexures, I think are key, and so it's on smaller scales when we see these flexures on fissure, is typically where we get blowouts, and often associated with these Huronian type structures. So I like this picture because it shows how close some of these zones are. Like Fisher and Fisher North are actually quite close together. And this is a picture we took with a drone back in 2020. The drilling. So Fisher trucks along this way, but you can see these Huronian structures crossing. There's the lithology sort of goes actually this way, and then there's a bigger Huronian structure that actually runs right through here, and so we get quite a good blowout of mineralization all through here. But there's more all through here. Each of these structures sort of exemplifies fluid flow and therefore gold mineralization. So as Taylor mentioned, the last news release we put out just earlier in August. We extended that zone, so we've been drilling, targeting, walking this main shoot down, but also assessing, some of the potential along strike, and getting some decent hits here and there, and we got a pretty good hit, just shy of 50 grams over a meter, so pretty happy. Geology looks good. It's nuggety and takes a lot of drill holes to drill off, but yeah, the system's there, the gold's there, as you can see by the numbers. So yeah, we're very happy. We've extended to ballpark about 700 meters in strike length. We've got it down to 200 meters so far, approximately. So lots of potential to find more gold. I mean, the zone keeps trucking along for hundreds of meters to the west, and a question mark to the up to the northeast. It's theoretically it's kilometers. And so an earlier news release in the year was sort of talking about these other Huronian type structures, and as we started backing up and drilling at depth on the fissure zone, you start backing up and you're hitting these small hits here and there that just didn't quite line up with things, and were sort of question marks, and so we did a bit of reassessing of what was going on, and with a lot of these historic hits and previous hits from our drilling in 21, and said, hey, this is we think we've got basically Huronian parallel structures all over the place that all in close proximity, really lends to the potential economics. When you've got lots of zones in such close proximity, it really starts to pique your interest, and you can start seeing the potential economics down the road. So we've got lots of zones, lots of parallel to Huronian. Again, it lends itself to quite cost-effective exploration as well. We can hit two birds, three birds with one stone. We're targeting the Fisher spot on the Fisher zone, but we get to now assess some of these what I call Fisher footwall or Fisher hanging wall zones, and then even potentially target the Huronian zone, farther down plunge and down dip, or even on strike. So there's some shots just to show you sort of there is visible gold occasionally. We do see it once in a while, but the zone is quite visible. It's quite marked by the alteration, for the geologist, the albitic sericitic alteration that is, and silicification, quartz veining is exemplified by these zones. And I always I got to put some gold pictures in, because the gold pictures are just really nice to look at. This is a shot of McKellar. I like this shot just in the sense that it shows, why it's important to really look at the historic data and make sure you're good with it. We modeled it back in not long after we had acquired the project, and there's some holes in the resource, the historic resource, and the model. But we decided to do a bit of stripping off the overburden off the zone, and there you see this. You see that right there. There's a collar from the Pele era, the 90s drilling, and they collared right in the middle of the zone. So you've got this big long quartz vein, multiple quartz veins through this, as 10 meter wide plus zone. And so they didn't realize that. They just thought they had collared in the right spot, but just thought they were at the beginning of the zone. So you go, oh, the grades aren't that good. The thickness, it's a little thinner here, but it's because they missed half the zone or more behind the drill hole. And then the picture on the left there, again, so that earlier gold mineralizing event is sort of exemplified by these quartz veins, and then the later Huronian event is typically in this direction, higher grade. So if you're sampling or drilling, sub parallel to the high grade event, you're apt to miss the high grade. So the way you sample, the way you drill, this is effectively getting a little messy, but we're drilling sort of in that direction, making sure we're getting good continuity of the higher grade mineralizing stuff and not missing it. And that's, we saw in that historic results where you drill and there's high grade and then there's low grade, and they were missing a lot of the high grade. So we think we can up the overall grade effectively of the zone by looking at it properly. And so we've extended McKellar to 600 meters in length. We've got it down to about 150 meters. We're continually drilling away. So this is the sort of the zoom in of the section here, inset on this right there. We did drill a few holes out the end of last year. Again, didn't get super good results, but did hit the zone. I think we had something. We were just off a little bit. So we've got an excavator in to do a bit of trenching. We, as I mentioned, did a bit of prospecting. So we think we've got a pretty good handle on what's going on to the far southwest now. But so we think that potential, the mineralizing that we're seeing in the McKellar immediate, we have potential for kilometers on strike to the southwest as well. Fairly typical hits, 6 grams over 5+ meters. So that's sort of in my head. I always use the 5 over 5, 6 over 6. That's ballpark what I'm looking for as a mark of success overall. So that's why we sort of use the gram meters, because sometimes it's more exemplified by higher grade. You get a little bit of blowouts, but it's higher grade, but it's not quite as thick, or vice versa. And sometimes you get these blowouts. So you use 30 grams over 7 meters. Fairly typical. We think, I call them treasure boxes. We think there's a lot of these treasure boxes kicking around. It's just a dense, density of drilling. You'll eventually find it. And again, a little bit of EG, visible gold in the McKellar, and again, alterations very similar to Fisher. The host lithology is just slightly different, so it looks a little bit different, but fairly consistent albite sericite silicification. So just to sum up, we continue to drill, and we're having lots of drill success. As mentioned, everybody's probably heard, the labs are quite backed up. We've suffered, some news flow problems because of it. The results are starting to trickle in. We've got a lot of samples at the lab, so we think we're going to have a news heavy fall winter. As all those results start coming in. But we continue drilling off Fisher Zone. The high grade continues. We've extended it down plunge and along strike quite well. We're at 700 meters, down 200 meters. McKellar, same thing. We're 600-ish meters, with more to come. We continue, drilling it down at depth. And then the Huronian Zone, as mentioned, that remnant resource potential. We continue working hard to upgrade that in the workings area, and looking to extend that down plunge and discover new shoots on strike. Sort of just a bit more of a detailed map, and you see that that drill direction, as I mentioned, and where where the zones are located. And then I'll just sort of finish up by just touching on the BLUFFPOINT project. We are getting some boots on the ground on that project. It's also 100% owned. It's a bit bigger than Huronian. It's about 8,900 hectares. As I said, it's the model of it was long strike from the Rainy River gold mine. The shear zone runs up here, hits this granite, horsetails into the granite essentially. And so it's a big project. It's a big gold mineralizing system. It's a bit of a different beast. It's got a lot of similarities to Cote Lake that IAMGOLD and Sumitomo are working hard developing. I got to update these numbers. They put out resource updates not too long ago, and the resource is quite substantially larger than that now. But yeah, and Hammond Reef, which is a Agnico Eagle project, actually not that far from Huronian. So it's granite hosted. These things are elephants, big gold mineralizing system, big tonnage systems. So we think we've got a lot of potential to find an elephant in here. We did a lot of work in the past, and as I mentioned, we're getting some boots on the ground to do a bit more work. Probably going to do some drone magnetics on it, and really spruce it up and look for a partner on the project. I'll skip the exploration history, but yeah, just to sum up, we've got two 100% owned projects. Have not seen a lot of exploration, even though Huronian's seen 20,000+ meters now of drilling. It's 30,000+ meters of drilling. That's really a drop in the bucket compared to many other projects. So still early stages, lots of news coming, and lots of success to be had in the coming year. So there's my contact info. Anybody wants more information or want to chat about the project, feel free to email, call.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Mike. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
So now we'll turn to the Q&A portion of the webinar. Just a reminder to everybody on the line that you can type in your questions at any point. So we did have one come in just wondering about the, I guess, the common structures of the deposit between the different types of the different rock types between the, it says here the deposits are in the metavolcanics, both intermediate to mafic and mafic. Are there common structures, regional and local? It was partially answered was answered in the presentation, but if there's any additional color, I guess you want to provide on that, I'll let you.
Well, yeah. So using this as opposed to me flipping back right to early, but so the Huronian gold trend is predominantly in mafic volcanics. There's a little bit of verging on ultramafics. We're doing a bit of geochem, but a little bit of sediments, iron formation sediments, so mafics to ultramafics. And then we've got this Temiskaming and felsic package that we've identified here. And there's actually one outcrop of Temiskaming sediments just down right somewhere way down on the McKellar Southwest. So that's the Huronian gold trend, typical geology. The Moss geology is more mafics to intermediates. There's a lot of intermediate volcanics and those type of related intrusions. So slightly different metavolcanic package. So slightly different gold mineralizing. I think they're similar events. They're potentially, I think, probably very close in age, but obviously they are exemplified differently because of the different host rocks. That sort of answers the question.
Yeah, I think that was pretty good there. Okay. So, you mentioned talking about the project now seeing upwards of 30,000 meters of drilling. How many meters are you looking at doing this year?
So we were slating 15,000. I'll be brutally honest. I think we're going to fall short of that just because of the rising prices of everything. Anything and everything has risen in price, as everybody knows. I mean, we were just talking about the diesel price before we started here. Diesel prices have more than doubled, and when you're since last year. So when you're looking at instead of $200, you're pushing $500 a day just for the drill. You can do the math and figure that your drilling costs are going to increase. We've been pretty good. We were well under $200 a meter all in last year. We're hovering at $200 a meter right now, so we might fall slightly short of the targeted 15,000 meters. But so that's this year. I mean, the question is, I always get asked how many meters is it going to take, and that's depends on how big the system is, right? So anybody that knows the business knows when I was just reading New Gold, their 400,000 meter drill program, or sorry, on New Gold in Newfoundland there. So not trying to make a direct comparison, but it's high grade quartz vein gold system, so there are similarities for sure. And you're looking at a 400,000 meter drill program on that project. So we're barely scratching the surface essentially on what needs to be done. But we're making good progress. And I think the goal has been to show the market, what the potential is before we ever start contemplating those kind of meters.
Right. Okay. And that'll take you up close to the end of the year with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And then, I guess where's the thought process, I guess, at this point, in terms of getting to a resource eventually, or an updated resource? Is it kind of evolving as you keep, expanding the zones, and you keep growing the mineralization, and is that?
Yeah. I mean, we've been working on models, and then with those Huronian parallel structures that the Fisher footwall and the Fisher hanging wall zones. So we had to do a bit of a rethink on what was going on, and also apply that sort of model to McKellar. And so it's an evolving thing, right? And we're trying to be very careful with the dollars. So we're trying to model and drill effectively, and we're being very successful at it, but it has implications on going forward with a resource. Obviously, it's still early stages. We're working hard on getting there, so we'll hopefully be able to put some clarity on that in the coming months on where we're at, basically.
Right. Perfect. Okay. You have another question on drilling here. What is the deepest hit or hole so far? Seem to be capping at around 200 meters. Does it continue deeper?
Well, there's no reason to think it doesn't continue deeper. It's we're trying to drill meticulously and carefully, because I don't like wasting dollars. So throwing a hole down at 500 meters depth on Fisher, as an example, that's a big step out, and it's expensive, right? Drilling a 500 meter hole at $200 a meter, that's an expensive hole. It's you're looking at 100,000. You don't want to waste $100,000 willy-nilly. So I prefer stepping carefully and working down plunge. Deepest hole, I think, has been on Huronian. Depth is sort of in the 350, I believe. I'm going around there. No reason to think these gold deposits in Archean terrains are typically very contiguous, down plunge and at depth. Look at Red Lake, how deep they're mining, or in Kirkland Lake. So use those 3 kilometers. I've been underground in Val d'Or and in the 300 meter range, or in Rouen, or 3,000 meter range. So they continue for kilometers typically at depth.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So then with drilling, I guess you're funded through this program, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Perfect. Okay. And then in terms of working potentially at the extension of the Moss Lake deposit on the Huronian project, are you planning additional work there?
Yeah. So as we put out news that we're doing the geophysics. It's coming along. I mean, it's a process, a time-consuming process to crunch the data properly. So, but nonetheless, we through our compilation of historic data, and through our preliminary work, we did the boots on the ground. We did some trenching down there back in 19, and done lots of mapping and prospecting and that. So we have targets already, and aided by some early tidbits of data from the geophysics. We will be drilling those, a handful of those targets to really get the ball rolling and show that potential. So,
and that drilling will be this year?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Yep. Okay. And then at Bluff Point, you mentioned wanting to get in there, do some boots on the ground work. Are there any particular areas that you're looking at right now on the project? As you mentioned, it is quite large.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna start on the actual Bluff Point proper in this area. There are some other structures that we know exist, so we'll probably and we think it's also related to the contact area between these two different lithologies. So obviously, immediate targets and then secondary targets through there. So, but yeah, basically, I'm being brutally honest. It's such a big project, and we need a partner. And I think this is having worked for majors, this is why I picked it, because I knew it would entice a bigger fish down the road. So really, we're trying to be careful with our money and do some good focused boots on the ground work to really improve the story. Doing a bit of alteration sampling, so a bit more structure work, because we've done a bit of desktop work to really refine those targets. So yeah, I mean, it'll be a reasonable size, and we'll get some. We're looking like September is going to be quite nice weather, so it'll be good. We'll get a couple geos and geotechs out there and really and then spruce it up and look for a partner.
Perfect. Okay. So with that, I think we are out of questions now. So maybe I'll just give you the last word if there's any kind of things you want to leave in the minds of investors, and maybe what's to come.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tough market. I mean, the saving grace for us is we've got lots of samples at the lab, and we're happy with what we've been drilling. On a visual, we're quite pleased with the progress we've been making. I think the results that'll come in will solidify that thought. We own the projects 100%. I think many of us, I know you and I are in alignment of this. This is we're going to come into a good gold market. It's been choppy, it's been painful, but it's not an if, it's just a when. So this Kesselrun with these 200% owned projects is poised to enjoy a good gold bull market.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely in alignment on that.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Mike, for taking the time today to host the webinar with Red Cloud Securities, and thank you to everybody on the line for tuning in today.